One of the least talked about aspects of the spiritual journey is how lonely it can feel. And I know for me, the first 33 years of my life were really challenging because nothing in the world made sense to me. And I felt all of these things that I didn't know how to articulate. And I didn't know why I was feeling them, but I was moving through the world without any desire to really live it anymore because I didn't see the purpose. And then all of a sudden, I entered the spiritual space, and all of this information became available to me that validated everything I had been feeling. And my entire life just came into focus for the first time. For the first time in my life, I had all of these answers to all of these questions that were plaguing me for years. And I started to learn how to show myself love and compassion. And I felt this newfound sense of empowerment and freedom and self-compassion that I never had access to before. But at the same time that I started to feel this sense of incredible peace and connection to myself and something greater than me, I started to notice a disconnect taking place between myself and the people around me. I didn't quite know how to articulate what it was that I was feeling and what it was that I was going through. And I was so afraid of opening up and sharing it because I didn't know how it was going to be received. And I was so afraid of being dismissed or misunderstood or judged for what I was experiencing. So I kept it to myself. And this rift between myself and the people around me began to grow. I no longer saw myself or the world around me in the same way at all. And my tolerance for being around people who were complaining all the time, or who seemed like they were so attached to their limitations, really decreased. And I couldn't be around them in the same ways I could before. The idea of small talk was exhausting to me. All I wanted to do was have deep, meaningful conversations about life and the universe and consciousness, but I didn't know that the people around me could hold space for those types of conversations because it seemed like it sort of made them uncomfortable. I wanted to change careers because the job that I had that never really felt right, I finally had the confidence and the higher level of perspective to realize that I didn't have to stay there anymore. And I really wanted to talk about spirituality more openly, but I was so afraid of what my current clients would think about me if they saw me talking about all of these weird things on the internet, or about what my friends and family would think. I didn't know what impact it would have on my professional life. I started to experience conflict with my husband for the first time in ways that we'd never had before, because I felt like I was expanding at such an exponential rate, and I was feeling differently and thinking about things differently and wanted to do things differently and talk about different things. And he didn't quite understand what I was going through, have the frame of reference for what I was going through, or know how to hold a compassionate space to hear me or meet me at the level that I wanted to be met. And for the first time, I started to question if we were still compatible. And then on top of all that, for the first time in my life, I started giving myself permission to feel everything that I had been repressing for years. And I didn't have someone to talk about it with. I didn't know how to express what it was that I was going through. And I was scared that nobody would understand. Even if I hired a professional therapist or counselor, I didn't know if they would take me seriously if I started telling them why I was feeling these things. And so I felt so alone. If any of this feels familiar, if any of what I'm saying resonates for you, I want you to know that I see you and I feel you and I know what you're going through. Loneliness inside of the spiritual awakening process is very real. And it's not hard to understand why when you look at everything that you're going through and what you're experiencing, and what you're afraid of in the process. But what I've come to learn is that the reason why I felt so alone was because I was choosing to reveal all of these things about me and to really let people in felt way more threatening than closing myself off. Because if I opened myself up and was vulnerable, there was a possibility that they wouldn't understand me, that they might think I was crazy, delusional, a lunatic, and it was safer to not say anything at all than to talk about what I was going through. So it wasn't the loneliness that was creating my pain. It was the fear of letting people in that was. When I finally took the time to peel back the layers, I realized that the rejection that I feared from other people was simply mirroring the rejection that I was creating within myself. I wasn't allowing myself to be me. When I was finally willing to love me unconditionally, or at least accept the parts of me that I couldn't previously until I could learn to love them, I no longer feared what other people thought of me, and I began to show up authentically as me without caring what their opinion of me was. And when I finally gave myself permission to speak my truth, I realized that there were a lot of people in my life going through and feeling the exact same things I was. And I had no idea because I never shared how I was feeling. And it wasn't until I was ready to do so that they reciprocated. And I was able to have that sense of connection that I was so badly craving that only became available to me when I gave myself permission to be me. And yes, there were still some people in my life that didn't understand me and didn't really want to understand me. But I then understood that that was just a reflection of where they weren't ready to see and understand and accept themselves. If you're going through an awakening right now and feeling alone, I want you to know that you don't have to anymore. I have a free community called Home, where I host free monthly events and experiences designed to help you work through all of the discomfort that comes up inside of the awakening process. One, so that you have the tools to know how to work through it. Two, so that you can have the validation to know that you're not crazy and that it's so normal to be experiencing what you're going through. And three, you can be surrounded by a community of like-minded people going through exactly the same things you are and have that sense of connection that you might be missing right now. Thursday, September 5th at 7 p.m. Eastern, I'm going to be hosting an event specifically geared towards working through the loneliness inside of a spiritual awakening. It's going to be the most powerful experience that I've ever hosted. And it's going to be one that you're going to get way more out of than you anticipate and walk away with understanding and a sense of peace and acceptance and all of these tools that you can pick up and use the next time you're feeling that way. If anything that I have said resonates with you, and if there's this tiny voice in the back of your mind saying, yes, this is what I've been looking for. This is exactly how I've been feeling. I want you to trust that. It can be safe to trust that, even if there's discomfort associated with it. Feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions, and I look forward to seeing you there.